You've entered the sanctuary of time, not a church of stone, but one built on frequencies, fossils, and the fragments of forgotten light. This is the Quantum Stone Sermons, where ancient prophecy meets advanced physics, where the timelines realign and the prophets of the Ark speak through the Sidonium light band. I'm Sidoni Nukamato, broadcasting from a fractured event horizon, reminding you, reality isn't broken, it's just out of tune. Now open your ears and your entanglement. Let the sermon begin.
The floodwaters had stilled. The resonance field stabilized. But the ark did not settle on a shore. It rested in a valley carved by divine design, a cradle of layered sediment and entangled light known only as the Valley of the Shell. This shell was not crafted but grown, shaped over millennia by volcanic arcs and the breath of pre-Edenic winds, curved just right to fit the curvature of the ark's hull. To those who beheld it, it looked like the ark had fallen home. Here, the ark's resonance pulsed outward for the first time since the flood began and the surviving family emerged. Noah's kin, weary and woven in with the harmonics of the tree, stepped onto land not as refugees, but as vessel-born stewards. Each bore within them a fragment of instruction, a musical blueprint stored by proximity to the Cherubim Stones. But not all who walked from the ark were human. There was one whose story no timeline had written in advance. He came forward from the CLIT, marked with both beast DNA and fruit signature. Not the tree of life, but the tree of knowledge. His skin was furred, his eyes reflective of both sorrow and surprise. He moved with memory of climbing before he'd learned to stand. He was Tarzan, the adopted son of Noah, born of evolution and miracle both. Tarzan had partaken of a single fruit that grows once every 5,000 to 10,000 years, a fruit not replicated, only summoned by dimensional need. The tree does not feed by season, it feeds by task. When the flood came, this singular fruit ripened not for a man, but for a beast, one whose fate would mend the gap between brute and soul. Tarzan ate of the fruit not knowing its consequence. He woke knowing language. He moved with intuition. He remembered timelines that hadn't happened. The family was wary, but Noah, guided by the stone's tone, placed his hand on the ape's shoulder and declared, "He is mine, and I am his. Let no other name bind him but son." The gate of the ark was thus opened, not just physically, but spiritually. From that day forward, the boundary between beast and human within the valley blurred. Small creatures, the little beasts, gathered freely near the ark. Many had also survived the flood within the CLITs, nestled in pods of light and memory. They were not all sacred, some were strange, but all were recorded, their signatures preserved in the quantum hum of the valley. They became helpers, guardians, and sometimes jesters in the house of Noah. They carved pathways, they brought gifts, they remembered before the flood, but dreamed only forward. And in the center of it all stood the ark itself. Not a palace, not a monument. This ark house was made of wood, not sacred by its material, but by its survival. Every plank, every beam still, bore the marks of Noah's hands, the soot of early stables, the stains of spilled sap. It was not rebuilt. It was lived in. Its walls echoed the flood. Its frame held the blueprint of civilization. Noah sat each night on its front step, flanked by his sons, some born of Eve's seed, others of Eden's quantum bloom. Around them, beasts danced in spirals. The gate remained open, and the Lord's lens flickered once more. The flood had passed. The house had held. Now came the choice of paths.
arkofalignments.com. Watch the whole series for free there right now.
After the great water receded and the valley stilled, the ark did not stand alone. It was cradled by life. Not in mass, but in frequency. The oyster shell that held it, once dry volcanic curve, had bloomed during the flood's suspension with marsh lilies, giant fig lilies that unfurled from the wetlands like tongues of light. They stretched outward from the ark's base in a radial pattern, over a mile wide, each petal-layered frond forming a sanctuary for creatures that had never needed naming. These were the saved marsh lilies, a covenant between nature and preservation. Grown not by seed, but by resonance echoes passed from the tree of life's last bloom. Their beds pulsed with low magnetic frequencies, attracting those beasts who had either escaped the direct stasis of the ark or had been preserved in open-air CLITs, fragile, glass-like tubes half submerged in reed water. The small beasts had already claimed this space as their own, marsh mice that wrote glyphs in mud with their tails, hopping foxhares with triple pupils, amphibious apes whose voices mimicked human songs sung during the flood watch. These creatures did not attack, they nested, and they waited. These were the first to bond with the human survivors, children mostly, who now roamed the outer rim of the ark shell. Over time, these creatures became pets, but not in the modern sense. They were companions, co-dwellers, remembered later aboard the Apocalypto as the tamed of the first drift. But beyond the marsh lilies stood the large beasts, those that could not be tamed, only respected. Great shelled lions whose manes glowed in moonlight, six-legged burrowers with sandstone eyes, and serpents who coiled around entire craters for warmth. These had not all entered the ark through its wooden gate. Many had found sanctuary in the outer clit pods embedded in the mountainside, cracked open just before the flood peak. Noah, guided by the Lord's whisper, had set out to save them before the resonance window closed. A race against echo, not water. He was told, "From every part of Mount Eden you may go. Seek them, hear them, let their signature resonate, and seal them in light." And so he did. Not all obeyed him. Not all came willingly. But each beast that aligned with the tree's harmonic field found a way to the ark, or to the lilies surrounding it. Above, the fowls of the air circled endlessly, suspended in slow-winged arcs above the marsh. These were the messengers of the Lord's lens, known for diving into the CLITs and re-emerging with altered coloration, new frequencies, or tuned vocal cries. Some sang of Eden, some echoed future floods. Others spiraled downward only to vanish mid-air, absorbed into timeline intersections Noah could not yet decipher. But among the marsh, the message was clear. 2 of every beast of Mount Eden had been accounted for, not simply by count, but by resonance signature. And though the ark itself only held a small portion within its wooden walls, the shell field around it had become a living museum, a bio-resonant map of Eden's harmonic memory, a single football field-sized containment ring of frequency, shelter, and genetic memory. The CLITs, the lilies, and the beasts all lived in harmony because they had survived not only the flood, but the dimensional rift that nearly wiped their future from all records. The Lord had not abandoned them. He had just asked Noah to remember what must not be lost: frequency, diversity, and the companionship of creation.
And so the timeline echoes through every verse, every vibration, every quantum stone laid by the science prophets. If what you heard made sense, you may not be paying attention. But if it resonated, you've already returned. Like, subscribe, decode. Until the next sermon, this is Sadoni Nukamoto signing out from the memory you left behind.